They say you know the ones who love you by the way they look at you when they think you're not watching. I used to believe that when Mara looked at me, there was love in her eyes. Warmth. Familiarity. But that night, under the amber lights of that isolated lakeside cabin, I saw something else. Anticipation. I should have realized something was off the moment she booked the trip. "We need to reconnect," she said sweetly, brushing her fingers over mine. "Somewhere private. No distractions. No phone calls. Just us." Looking back now, I see it all with terrifying clarity. The insistence on the specific lodge. Her odd calmness the whole way there. The way she watched me more than she looked at the lake. I thought she wanted to fix us. I didn't realize she wanted to finish me. The cabin was perfect for what she had in mind. Isolated. Minimal staff. A storm warning in effect that kept most visitors away. I thought the rain just made the setting cozier. But now I realize, it was the perfect cover. We lit a fire that evening. Mara opened a bottle of our favorite wine, an expensive red we'd saved for special occasions. It was already uncorked when I walked into the room, and I remember joking, "Couldn't wait for me?" She just smiled. I was too excited. That was her excuse for everything. Too excited. Too tired. Too busy. Always something. We toasted to new beginnings. She looked beautiful. Red lipstick. Eyes gleaming. I took a sip. It was bitter, and not in the usual way. A chemical sting settled at the back of my throat. "You okay?" she asked. My tongue felt heavy. Within minutes, I couldn't feel my legs. My chest burned. My vision blurred, and I stumbled forward. I remember the wine glass slipping from my hand and shattering on the wooden floor. I tried to speak. Tried to ask what was happening. She knelt beside me like a lover in distress. But she wasn't crying. She was watching. Jason entered the room quietly. He wasn't supposed to be there. He wasn't supposed to exist in our marriage. But he was there, calm and smug, as if he'd just arrived for dinner. I couldn't move, but I saw everything. Heard them. "You gave him too much," Jason said, nudging me with his foot. "He'll be out in a minute," Mara replied. "Just help me get him in the boat." I wanted to scream, to ask why, to beg, to curse, but my mouth wouldn't move. My body was a rag doll in their hands. They dragged me across the cold floorboards, bumping my head against the doorway. I stared at the ceiling of the cabin one last time, rain thudding on the roof like the beat of a war drum. I felt the boat. The rocking. The slap of cold wind on my face. Jason whispered something to her, something I couldn't hear over the roar of water. And then they pushed me in. The world turned black. Drowning isn't what they say it is. It's not peaceful. It's not a slow, poetic fade into darkness. It's panic. Fire. Pressure building in your lungs until it feels like your chest will cave in. I was conscious when the lake swallowed me. I couldn't scream. Couldn't swim. My limbs barely moved, weighted by whatever she drugged me with. But something inside me, some raw, stubborn instinct, refused to let go. The cold shocked my system. The current dragged me down. But I didn't sink as far as they'd hoped. Maybe it was the way they tossed me in. Maybe the gods of revenge hadn't finished crafting my story yet. A log, half sunk and slick with moss, floated near me. Somehow, I grabbed it. Clung to it like it was life itself. I must have passed out after that. When I woke up, it was to a rough voice shouting, "Hey! Hey, are you alive?" I was half on shore, half in the freezing mud. My skin was pale blue, fingers stiff. My lungs burned. But I was breathing. The man who found me, Carlos, was a local fisherman. He'd decided to brave the storm that morning to check on his boat. He almost didn't see me at all, thinking I was a corpse caught in reeds. He saved me. Wrapped me in his jacket. Called paramedics. Stayed with me until they arrived. In the hospital, I drifted in and out of consciousness. I couldn't talk for days. When I finally did, no one believed my story. Because Mara had already done her job. She told them I'd been unstable. That I'd talked about taking my own life. That I'd left her a note, which I never wrote. She cried on local news channels. Held vigils. Wore black. And while the world mourned the man I used to be, I lay in a hospital bed, watching her on TV, smiling like she'd already cashed the check. I didn't argue. Didn't shout. Because a part of me had died. But the part that remained, he wanted vengeance. And he would not be stopped. 6 months. That's how long I let the world believe I was dead. After my release from the hospital, Carlos took me in. He didn't ask too many questions, just knew I wasn't ready to be seen. I lived in a small loft above his workshop, mostly in silence, healing both my body and the fury buried in my chest. But I didn't waste time. I watched them, her. Mara. Jason. They were living the dream. My dream. My money. The life insurance policy I'd taken out just months before our anniversary had been cashed, $500,000. They moved into a sleek downtown apartment with a view of the skyline I used to work in. They got a new car. Took vacations. She wore designer heels now. Posted selfies with filtered sunsets and wine glasses, captioned with fake grief and hashtags like #healing and #gone-too-soon. I watched from the shadows, fake accounts. VPNs. Security camera access. I had friends, quiet ones, tech-savvy people who owed me favors from back when I actually helped people, not ghosted them from beyond the grave. What did I find? More lies. More betrayal. They weren't hiding their relationship anymore. Jason moved in 3 weeks after my death. They hosted dinner parties. Laughed together on rooftops. My widow was glowing. My best friend was smug. My blood boiled every time I saw them smile. But I didn't act. Not yet. Because revenge isn't just about striking back. It's about control. They took mine away when they drugged me, dumped me, and watched me disappear beneath the water. Now, I was taking it back, inch by inch. I documented everything. Bank transactions. Surveillance footage. Recordings of them talking in public, things they never thought twice about saying because they thought the only man who could hurt them was gone. But I was there. Breathing. Burning. And planning. You know what's funny? Jason used to brag about being clever. I could fake a polygraph, he once said at a poker night. You just need to believe the lie. Turns out, that's exactly what they did. They convinced themselves they hadn't murdered me, they just removed an obstacle. Jason said that once, laughing, when they were drinking on their balcony. I never wanted him dead, Mara murmured in the video. Just gone. Same difference, Jason replied. I recorded it. Every word. Every laugh. That was the night I decided how this would end. No violence. No bullets. No blades. I was going to bury them the same way they buried me, with sweet smiles. Smooth lies, and undeniable evidence. First, I reached out to an attorney I trusted, Sarah. She owed me, big time. Years ago, I helped her get clean. She was the kind of lawyer who believed in justice, not handouts. When I told her everything, she paled. Louis. This is attempted murder. I know. And you're legally dead. I know that too. We worked together for weeks, preparing what we needed. There was no rush. Let the snakes dance a little longer before the fire hit the stage. I changed my appearance. Not drastically, but enough. A beard. Contacts. New clothes. I even gained weight, purposefully. I didn't want to look like a ghost. I wanted to look better. Stronger. Like someone who had come back from hell with a score to settle. Once everything was ready, I triggered the first step of the plan. I visited my old bank with Sarah beside me. My legal identity was declared deceased, but she filed for reactivation under a fraud clause with substantial evidence. The manager nearly fainted when I walked in. "Mr. Ashford. We thought." "I know what you thought," I said, voice even. "But I'm very much alive, and I'd like to see my accounts. Step 1, control the assets. Step 2, expose the snakes." I contacted the insurance company anonymously. I told them to expect a formal fraud report and forwarded them a copy of the video where my grieving widow confessed to plotting my disappearance. Their fraud department went ballistic. Turns out, they had their doubts too. Things didn't fully add up in her statements back then. They'd paid the money under pressure, but the case file remained open. Now they had cause to reopen it, and this time with a vengeance. Step 3, the reunion. Not with flowers or open arms, but with cold, merciless justice. I invited them both, Mara and Jason, to a staged exclusive business gala in a luxury hotel downtown. Jason always wanted to feel like a CEO. Mara loved attention. Of course they showed up. They walked into a ballroom, lights dimmed, music low. And on every screen was me. Not the old me. The new me. Stronger. Alive. And smiling. Jason froze. Mara dropped her champagne glass. "Hi," I said through the speakers. "Miss me?" Before they could run, the lights came on. Police surrounded them. Sarah stepped forward with officers, handing over the final warrants. Fraud. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. Insurance deception. It was all there. And I just stood behind the curtain, listening to the sound of their world collapsing, just like mine had. Only difference, I came back. The trial was a media storm. Man declared dead returns to expose wife and best friend in insurance scam. Headlines everywhere. The press camped outside the courthouse like vultures. They wanted the drama, the betrayal, the lies, the resurrection. But I wasn't there for a show. I was there for justice. Mara cried on the stand. I almost believed her tears. If I hadn't known her smile. I loved my husband, she sniffled. I didn't know what Jason planned. He told me Lewis had a heart condition. I thought he drowned. My lawyer leaned over and whispered, "She's good. She's going for the sympathy card." I stared at her, cold. She wouldn't find any sympathy here. Jason tried the "I was manipulated" defense. Claimed Mara seduced him into it. Said she promised they'd run away together but never mentioned murder. "You dumped him in a lake and walked away," the judge reminded him. He had no answer. The prosecution laid it all out, my medical records showing I'd been drugged. Forensic reports on the boat. The video where they both laughed about how they didn't want me dead. Just gone. It was airtight. They didn't stand a chance. The verdict, guilty. Mara screamed when the sentence was read. Jason just slumped in his chair like he'd aged 20 years. Attempted murder. Insurance fraud. Conspiracy. 15 years, no parole for either. But even that wasn't the best part. No, the best part was looking Mara dead in the eye before they took her away and whispering, "You should have made sure I was actually dead." She lost her color then. All of it. Like she'd finally seen the ghost she thought she buried come back to drag her into the truth. And I walked out of that courthouse free. Alive. Vindicated. Unburdened. People think coming back from the dead makes you feel powerful. It doesn't. It makes you quiet. It makes you reflective. It forces you to see the world differently, through the cracks people try to hide with smiles and rehearsed emotions. I spent months rebuilding my life. Quietly. No fanfare. I changed my name legally. Moved to a small coastal town. Started a business from scratch, something simple, honest work that didn't tie me to my old identity. The world knew Louis Ashford was dead. And in a way, he was. What rose from the ashes wasn't the same man who had once trusted too easily. I kept my circle small. Trusted less. Loved carefully. Carlos stayed in my life, loyal as ever. Sarah and I stayed in touch, she even brought me fresh files of clients she thought needed real help. Redemption cases, she called them. And I offered quiet advice behind the scenes. I became a ghost who helped people now. But I wasn't bitter. Not anymore. Because here's the thing about revenge, it doesn't bring back what was lost. It doesn't heal what they broke. But it frees you. It gives you permission to move forward. To let go. Not because they deserve forgiveness. But because you deserve peace. One morning, I stood on the edge of the ocean, barefoot in the sand. Sun rising over water that shimmered like gold. And I thought about how close I came to dying. How Mara and Jason chose money over my life. How fate, cruel, miraculous fate, gave me a second chance. Not just to breathe. But to live. And I whispered something into the wind that only I could hear. Thank you for saving me, even when no one else wanted me saved. Then I walked forward, not looking back, not even once. Because this was my story now. Not the one they wrote in lies and betrayal. The one I wrote in survival, fire, and quiet triumph. I wasn't just a man who came back, I was a phoenix, and I was finally free.